Ophiucus is actually Asclepius and a symbol of resurrection. So this is commonly known as the 13th zodiac, and it is basically November. So the reason that it was omitted by the Babylonians, and of course we have maintained this sexagesimal system of 60 minutes per hour and 12 months in the year, although Romans introduced the 10, the decimal system, so we have kind of a hybrid system here. That's important esoterically, but whatever. So the 13th zodiac constellation, the 13th constellation in the ecliptic, I should say, because the zodiac is the animal wheel of only 12. So Ophiucus is the serpent bearer, and it's Asclepius according to Greek mythology. And I do believe that the Babylonians also had a similar serpent bearer connection. So Greeks basically adopted the Mesopotamian and Middle Eastern names and then assigned their own mythology to it. And then during the European Dark Age, the Islamic and Arab astronomers actually took over. And so they introduced their own influences and reintroduced some of these stories back in, which is interesting. So we have actually a hodgepodge of like Europeanized and original second, third, fourth generation Middle Eastern astronomical stories in our constellations, which is fantastic. But anyway, the name Ophiucus is Greek. It means serpent bearer, and it's Asclepius basically holding Hydra. So Asclepius was a healer in Greek mythology, the father of Hygeia, whose symbol is the caduceus, the two snakes, although Asclepius, the father, is just one snake. So esoterically, I believe, and this is my personal work, you can take a snake as healing or death, and the caduceus as the symbol of resurrection. To the Greeks, Asclepius was both death and medicine and resurrection. So, both. And then Hygeia was the caduceus, the two snakes, and that is commonly, it's like this Mandela effect thing where we usually think that the caduceus is the medicine and Asclepius is, but it's one. Okay, whole thing. This heavily factors into genetic engineering, Nazism, and Grail mythology, the Holy Grail. And this Christian nationalism thing. So I am going to stand firm in the esoteric piece, but I'm just in this part 3 describing this constellation, so I will try not to go down that rabbit hole. You can see part 1 and part 2 for those, especially part 2. Snakes have been coming up a lot, and I definitely see that we're going to have like a positive overhaul of the legal system of how we do medicine, but that it's ultimately leading to genetic engineering, which I'm against. I think it's cool. But I don't think that we are mature enough to use it properly, so that's why I don't want to see it used for, white supremacy and basically disadvantaging the people who need it. Because who get the most cancer? Generally, people of color and poorer people who are not going to have access to expensive genetic treatments, probably, if we continue with our current structures, people of color and poor people. So why are we implementing this? There's a whole agenda. Anyway, constellation. So I've been seeing in my dreams, and it's symbolic. It's not necessarily prophetic, although I think it's possible that this could be implemented. But it is just symbolic for me that there are the original 13 stars on the flag in a circle, like the original 13 colonies in my dream. And I've seen this in media. It's not original to me. And I go like, what is going on? And it's because we're like getting back to the founding father values or whatever. And yeah, and that's like how we know. And so I'm seeing online a lot of stuff about the 9 stars. So anyway, so I looked that up. It's Carina, and that's not as related to this. So that's probably why my subconscious is showing me 13 stars instead of 9. We could talk about Hydra, the water snake, and Grail mythology, but that's a longer thing, so I'm not sure I'm going to post that. But anyway, Ophiucus is the 13th constellation. It is Asclepius, the healer, and I do think that there's something, obviously snakes are a symbol of women, Kundalini energy, as well as medicine, and pagans. And so when you see stories about like St. Philip, the horse, who drove out the snakes, and St. Patrick, who drove out the snakes, and Moses, who got punished for people putting a snake on a stick, which was a healing symbol. Because people will also say, well, maybe it was a bull, which, Taurus, Aldebaran is one of the Islamic names, or I should say Arab names, because it's a whole thing with like geopolitics and religions and things. Anyway, so we're going to see in America our own political religion agenda, because we have tried to keep them separate, but technically separation of church and state is not in the Constitution. It's a goal, but it's not explicit. What is explicit is freedom of religion, but we're seeing our rights taken away. So I'm going to stick with actual traditional Christianity, which is being nice to your neighbors and stuff. and my personal beliefs are not part of this, but there's a lot of esoteric Christianity, so you can get in on this, symbolic study without worshiping the devil. That's a common misconception. It's just because religions are dogmatic. They don't want you to know your power. They don't want you to look outside. They want you to look to the religion and get high off the drug of collective singing and dancing. They don't want you to know about anything else. Because if you realize that your highest power is your connection to Christ or God or the universe or nature, whatever you call it and however you access it, if you realize that, then you'd realize you don't actually need religions. So that's why they don't want you to know about it. But not all esoterica is bad. If you're seeing my page, you probably don't believe that it is. Although I do get the odd Christy person going like, in the name of Jesus Christ, like, okay. Anyway, so believe what you want. We don't have to agree religiously or politically. I'm just trying to give political references and esoteric symbols so that we can sort of understand the playbook here, because it's not about being a Christian, it's about power.